Okay, we're live. Hi, Dave. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Good morning, Grace. Good morning, everybody.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start with okay, so you went to a school in San Diego, you have worked in software sales and like engineering. Why don't we start with like where how did you get to like where did you come from and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, boy, what a journey. My passion and my life's work has been around how innovation, specifically software, drives business outcomes. This goes way back to your point when I was a teenage undergrad. I thought I wanted to be an accountant. All of a sudden I realized how powerful the at the time the IBM PC was for accounting, and I completely flipped a bit and went off down the technology path. So um, here I am, maybe 35 years later now, still doing the same kind of work in a bunch of different roles across product engineering, go to market, post sales, um, and along the way met a lot of great people, a lot of life lessons, and it's been formative in terms of how I view our future.
Mm. Okay, so I wonder, so who is on your personal board of advisors when it comes to career development?
Oh, that's a great question. I have so many of you are on LinkedIn. I might get embarrassed if I leave out some names. Currently on at Sauce Labs, we have a wonderful board of directors. Robin Peterson is our chairman. At my last company, Unity, both Roloff Botha and from Sequoia and Egon Durbin of Silver Lake have been really impactful. Way back in the day, a gentleman by the name of Ken Beto, who's now retired, and some of the alumni at Autodesk, just a bunch of different people have shaped who I am as a business leader.
I wonder, what do you identify as like one skill you're constantly trying to get better at?
Probably, particularly at my age, just continuing to keep up with the pace of innovation. It's actually what keeps me young. But I spend a lot of time digging deep and really trying to understand, what's genuinely coming, and things like AI, and just a few short years ago, Web3 and crypto and blockchain, and trying to understand that. I've got a lot of passion and have for many years around computer-aided design and manufacturing, and using innovation in software to drive competitiveness in manufacturing and clean energy around the world. So that's what keeps me young.
So I wonder, okay, so why don't we start with like, so I wonder, like, you mentioned about like, AI, crypto, and like all these kind of new technology. I wonder, how do you like, what does your information diet look like to kind of equip yourself to be like super on like basically studying all the tech trends and making sure that it's implemented into your business?
Great question. The first thing that I do is I take a step back and think practically, is there a problem here to be solved? Is there an opportunity that in some way, shape, or form this technology unlocks? And ultimately, what's the expected outcome? I think about AI, for example, in the market that I'm in right now, which is automated functional testing. Some people would suggest, well, it's going to disrupt functional testing. I would say it's going to create a massive amount of demand for automated testing. We did a survey at the end of last year. 2/3 of the developers that we surveyed use ChatGPT today to generate some of their code. And some of them do pull requests without even running functional tests on it. That's risky, to say the least. And there's going to be more and more places where AI is used to democratize code generation, make it easier for people who don't necessarily know how to code to create more digital experiences. And that's a great thing for the world, for the most part, as long as there are checks and balances around to ensure that code is ultimately tested and does the right things.
Totally. Why don't we chat about like, how does Sauce Lab um became Sauce Lab, and then like what are some like different levels of like testing do you guys do? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're a 15-year-old company. We largely play in a market called end-to-end functional testing. You need our platform if you have a need for a high degree of code coverage, because maybe you're a regulated industry, you're a large bank, and you run a digital app that needs to work exactly right all the time, or you are a large e-commerce company. The backbone of your business runs on the web and in mobile apps that enable you to transact business. Or maybe you're a large software company. The world's manufacturers run on top of software that keeps those factories running, keeps the inventory and supply chain running smoothly. That software has to run right. And so if you're that type of company, you need a high degree of code coverage. You run on top of Sauce Labs so that as you're developing software, whether you're on Chrome like we are today, or Safari or Firefox, or you're running a native mobile app, or you're running in a headset, those digital experiences work precisely and identically correct across all these platforms. We run billions of tests per year on top of our platform on behalf of the world's largest enterprise digital innovators in the world, and that's what we do.
I wonder, like, as a CEO of the company, how much of your time is spending on like building the product versus, you know, I guess like creating, like I guess like how do you spend your time? What's a typical day look like for you?
Um, well, I'm thrilled to be starting off my day doing this. By the way, this is a thrill for me, getting the opportunity to talk to you and a large audience of innovators out there on LinkedIn. So I do a little bit of this, not a lot of this. But it's interesting to your question around where do I spend my time. There's certainly a lot to be said for doing what we're doing, which is being a product-centric company. Understand your ideal customer profile, size that market opportunity, ensure that you understand clearly the jobs to be done or problems to be solved. All those people out there that are product-oriented people know what I'm talking about. And then making sure that we're innovating with velocity, just like we enable our customers to do. Put the key functionality and performance and stability things we need to put in place to deliver on the promise of what our platform is intended to create. But long-winded wind up to say a majority of my time these days is actually spent in ensuring that I'm enabling our team of people. We're a small company. We're 325 people worldwide. And my biggest impact is ensuring that I'm knocking down barriers for those across all those functions to do their best work, that I'm coaching, that I'm developing. I've been so blessed in my career by some of those mentors and many people around me to have been given opportunities and coaching and drive and feedback to enable me to be better as a business leader and a technologist. And so, at this point in my career, that's how I give back on a day-to-day basis. I invest a lot in people in ensuring that they get the best part of themselves out of every day that they're here.
I wonder, so like I know that like before Sauce Labs, you worked at like Autodesk and Unity. Can you talk about like the core lessons that you've learned throughout your career that you kind of like took to, implement it in your CEO role?
Wow, so many. Look, as you go through the arc of your career, for those of you who are early on, I think there's a lot of fundamental things that you can develop early that drive success all the way along the way. Discipline around delivering results, whatever function you're in, making commitments and delivering on those commitments, a fundamental lesson. two eyes, one mouth. Seek first to understand others, appreciate diverse points of view, engage in conversation that ultimately delivers better outcomes. So those fundamental skills early on, you learn in your career, and you learn how to be really great as let's call it an operator. I think later stages in my career, particularly at Unity, where I last was, another one of my mentors, John Riccatello, I learned the beauty of thinking differently, the beauty of realizing what's possible. In fact, thinking about what's perceived to be impossible, and then working backwards around what would it take to get there. And I found that in later stages in my career, one of the most rewarding things is enable people to do things that maybe on the surface seemed impossible or they thought impossible, but watching them actually achieve those things has been exceptionally rewarding.
I wonder, when you were thinking about, let's say, like for Unity, at one point you were the chief revenue officer, and so you're in sales. I think like generating revenue is like one of the core jobs of a CEO. What were, like, I guess, like when you were getting into a company, how do you think about how to sell a particular product, and how do you kind of like, yeah, I guess, like, yeah, I will stop there. I've been told I need to like stop asking multiple questions at once.
Well, I don't know. There's all kinds of schools of thought about how to be a great salesperson, and I would characterize myself in some ways as an accidental tourist that that went on a long vacation through a path of sales. I was a developer and a chip designer early in my career. I was surrounded by salespeople who wanted to convince me to use their products, and I realized they hadn't done my job before, and it seemed odd to me that they were selling to me. And so I decided to go try it because I had done that work and I thought I could be pretty successful. And I did have many successful years as a person responsible for sales and revenue. I found, some key principles, probably three. Principle number one, don't try and convince somebody to buy your products if you don't fundamentally believe it's going to deliver value. It's going to deliver on a promise of faster development or higher quality or more revenue. If you can't be convinced, then you really have no business trying to convince them otherwise, because the person on the other end of that quote unquote sales transaction is putting their career on the line. They're putting their livelihood on the line by making a bet that you can help solve their problem. So that's fundamental, element number one. Element number two is probably understand both let's call it the speeds and feeds, the product capabilities, understand what your products do and why it matters, and have the same balance and intimate understanding of what makes people tick. I find that I'm a better leader. I'm probably a better husband and father and friend. I'm probably a better citizen of the world, human being, because I'm curious about what makes people, what makes them who they are, what makes them decide what they do. Why do people like certain things and not like other things? So really understanding the organic elements of who we are as people and how we make decisions. And then finally, every industry that you sell to, every buyer is different. They have different motivations. They have different needs. When I went to Unity and was responsible for revenue, we were selling to game developers, and ultimately game developers have a very specific point of view around how they attach value to products they use to develop their games. And you really have to ensure that as you're going out there and putting a sales strategy in place to generate revenue, again, you're delivering on a promise. You are making it easy for them to understand how you unlock value and ship games faster. the revenue that you're generating or that they are paying you out of their pockets, they're getting 3, 4, 5x in return. And if your business model is not set up that way, your motion is not set up that way, you're probably going to fail.
I wonder when you are switching from, like, I guess not switching, but like when you went from like Unity to Sauce Labs, what are, like, I guess, like, I feel like you are selling to a completely different set of audience. How does the skill or like network translate into the new role?
Well, our customers are developers. Just like at Unity, there was a specific subset of developers that we really supported. Those who create video games for a living, those who create immersive AR, VR, or real-time 3D experiences for a living. And I'd suggest to you that those developers may be a little bit ahead of the developers who are front-end developers doing HTML or back-end doing, some form of enterprise integrations, et cetera. No less important, but where I see the world going is a world where our digital experiences are going to become more and more immersive, more and more 3D in nature, more hyper-realistic, running at 120 frames a second across all kinds of different endpoint devices. And so the world's developer community will catch up, if you will, to the techniques and capabilities that our game developers and 3D artists and technicians already know. Anyway, at Sauce Labs, we support the entire world's developers, whether you're building a web application, a native mobile application, an application that runs on an interesting piece of handheld hardware. One of the largest retailers in the world runs a specialized Android-based device in their stores to help do pricing and inventory measurement in their physical stores. So at Sauce Labs, we support the developer community in this march towards innovation and creating a better world.
I wonder, how do you think about, like, from a business perspective, like, how do you think about like selling to, let's say, like right now you guys have partnered with a lot of like iconic companies, and I wonder, what does the sales process look like? Do you sell to like the CTO, like from a top down perspective, or like is that more of a bottom up? Because I think like recently I've seen a lot of because of like, I feel like because of like like this AI movement, a lot of sales are coming from community, open source related things, or so basically it's kind of like more of a bottom up approach. I wonder what's your perspective on like selling it to a larger company?
Yeah, great question. Back to the question earlier around fundamentals around sales. I gave you 3. There's probably a half dozen more. One of them is to be effective in getting your product out into the market. From a go-to-market motion, you really want to be able to have a multi-level strategy. And what that means is the right message and the right value proposition to the right audience. And that includes your developer community, who is ultimately going to make the technical decisions on whether Sauce Labs is the right platform for them, and whether they really need the power and the scalability that we provide. As you move up the stack, there's usually almost always there's a head of DevOps or a CTO or somebody who's responsible in the office of the CTO around developer velocity and productivity, and they might have their own budget and their own set of objectives and key results that they need to drive in the developer community across functional groups. You move up, sometimes you have general managers that are running business units. We have a banking customer who, for example, is launching a 100% digital bank across Europe. They actually are responsible for the software development, the QA, and the live operations of that digital experience. And then finally, you have a CFO and or CTO who is looking for a high return on investment. And You have to have the right value proposition and the right message at every level. You can't stay at the bottom level and have a PLG motion 100% and not have a value proposition for somebody further up in the stack. You can't go to the CFO if there's no meat on the bone relative to what you do for the developer community. And so that's a lesson learned along the way. And at Sauce Labs, we start with a large community of developers. Our platform is built on top of Selenium, which is the largest open source functional testing platform in the world. We have some of the original founders of Selenium still here at the company and submitting more code than anybody else in the world from an open source testing perspective. And so we move up the channel, if you will, through a number of different motions, online motions, developer community events. We're having one this Thursday. Come on by in San Francisco. We have a deep bench of individual contributor technical people that have worked in this industry like me for years, but are on the keyboards, and that's where their passion and talent is. And as we move up, we have very senior people that, like me, really can have a conversation around how quality drives developer velocity, drives great digital experiences, drives revenue. And you have to have that conversation with everybody along the way.
I wonder when you are thinking about, hi audience. But anyway, so I wonder when you are thinking about like the competitive landscape, like I guess like how, number one is like, how do you view like this market? Like what were people doing before this solution come to place? And what do you feel like is like I guess like the biggest challenge of like selling the solution or like creating a like I guess like what do you think is like the competitive advantage among like your product versus like everybody else?
Yeah. So first things first, like it's a wonderful question. If you think about the landscape in general, there are a lot of people in the world, a lot of developers, a lot of people in the world who are building online businesses. They are launching digital applications, web-based experiences, et cetera, at various degrees of complexity. Now, specific to software, a lot of people in the world test their software via what's called live testing or manual testing. They get people in a room and literally with a mouse go through every possible permutation and combination of that digital experience. And if it works roughly right, then off we go. And that's probably okay if you are a small business who has a web-only application and it has basic information around what you do as a business, what your hours are at your retail store, maybe how to contact you. Maybe you've got an advanced capability of online chat or something like that. And if that's the kind of experience you're building, then you probably don't need what we do. You need what we do if, as I said earlier, you have a massively complex digital experience. You might be Activision Blizzard. I'm making that up as an example, where you have an entire family of video games, Call of Duty, that each version has to run across all kinds of different platforms and support millions and millions of players and gameplay sessions every day. Or you might, for example, you might be a business that rents out homes for vacation experiences. You know the companies that I'm talking about. And your entire revenue stream runs off the basis of shoppers coming, selecting a property, filling out an application, reserving a specific time, and making a payment transaction that is fraud safe. That's a big deal if your entire livelihood runs on that digital experience. If you're an insurance company that manages people's life insurance policies and ensure that premiums are transacted on time so there's no lapse in coverage, you probably need Sauce Labs. And so what we do is we think about the market landscape. We look at what live testing, manual testing, simple automated testing can solve. And honestly, we stay away from that because that's not where our value proposition, our unique business value is. Our unique business value is in this high complexity, high code coverage, cross-platform testing capability that has to be done right. And the other thing that I've always known as a developer long ago, and certainly along the way selling to developers, is that I wanted choice. I didn't want Sauce Labs or any other company to tell me that I had to buy their stuff. And so what we've tried to do is be very good at this high-end capability, and then make sure that our platform is open and extensible, so that third parties that provide other testing capabilities can in fact plug in and give a wonderful developer experience.
I wonder, I wanted to double click on like the part you mentioned about like the more complex a product is, they're more likely to use like a Sauce Labs product. And I wonder, like, what does it look like for you guys to, let's say you mentioned about Call of Duty or like some other things that Blizzard have created. Let's say if you want to help them test, like which project do you pick first? And how does it like, per to this, like we chat about like, maybe iPhone have like very different versions, and then like how your app works on different phones that may affect their just like capability of performance.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like when you pick up a project, like how do you start, and like which sub project do you start first?
Yeah, well, when we're engaging with clients, one of the first conversations that we have during our discovery process is really trying to understand whether that organization has a test strategy, whether they have very specific outcomes that are linked back to quality and developer productivity, whether they have the right people in place who know how to build sophisticated, high-performing automated testing frameworks, whether they're prepared to leverage the power of what we can bring to their organization. And if they're not prepared, we try and put the right people in place on the Sauce Lab side and skill up the people on the client side to make sure that they're ready to get the best out of the platform and the money that they pay. From there, we start to look at some of the fundamental quality challenges, or the types of bugs that find their way out into the world and come back in the form of regressions, to really start to figure out how to make sure that our platform is properly set up to go stamp those bugs out. So back to your point a minute ago about Apple and iOS, we have a food company. Let's call them that. They're a retailer that sells a massive amount of burritos and tacos and salad bowls all the time, and they have a great web experience. You can order online with no problem. They use Sauce to test that. They actually have a great Android experience. We found very recently that they were struggling to keep up and keep the pace, delivering high quality native mobile app experience on iOS, because every other day there's a security flaw or a fix, bug fix, etc. And so we jumped in and helped them really boost up their testing capability for what are called virtual machines on the iOS side, and now they can ensure that the customers that order burritos on an iPhone, which is probably more than any other platform, they have the same high quality experience that everybody else has. This particular company is not unlike many other companies where if a consumer is in your app, they're on your website, and they crash or they have an unsuccessful transaction, 3 times they're gone. 2 times they're 2/3 likely to leave. 3 times they're gone and they won't come back. I, as a consumer, If I can't make an airline reservation online within 60 seconds, I'll go book on another carrier.
Mm. Do you guys produce these kind of performance report for the company, or like do you guys come up with a solution like, oh, here's like 5 things that you need to do to like improve this, and like we're gonna build it with you?
We actually do both. We have when I talk about a platform, by the way, beware viewers, the next person that comes on here, there's all kinds of buzzwords. Platform is a buzzword. We have a true platform. We have a high performance infrastructure layer. We have a layer of testing applications. This third layer, Grace, is a data and insights layer where we can produce insights for that head of DevOps or the central tech person who really wants to connect the amount of tests and the code coverage to quality, to developer velocity, to regressions, and really begin to have an even more informed test strategy as they kind of close loop the capabilities on our platform. The other thing is, because we have literally well over 1,000 customers at this high-end enterprise level, who run literally billions of tests on an annual basis, we can anonymize data and look at it and help organizations understand where they are relative to the maturity of their test strategy, again, and how to grind even more productivity out by stomping out the quality issues that plague so many developers.
I wonder, what is it like working with different type of companies? We mentioned about the burrito company. There's also a lot of like other different type of clients that you guys work with. Yeah, I guess like how advanced is different people's tech team, and like how sophisticated is like testing
Oh my
house?
God, it's super fun. I mean, it's you have, I can't. I'm doing everything that I can today to not mention very specific, Fortune 500 customer names, but it's just so much fun to work across industries and see how different people think of quality, think about their digital experiences relative to their core business. There's so much innovation going on out there in the world. One of the things I particularly love is working with fashion brands, because in the middle of COVID, you couldn't go to that beautiful fashion store and touch and feel the leather or see the shiny metal, etc. And so the luxury goods industry has really upped their game relative to digital innovation, because during COVID they had to continue to keep that brand connection. When a shopper couldn't go into the store, they actually had to continue to drive revenue when somebody couldn't go into a store. So think about buying a $10,000 watch or a $20,000 purse, sight unseen. The digital experience has to uphold the promise of that brand. That's very different than a gigantic Midwestern-based retail store that's one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world. They sell massive amounts of lower average sales price, lower ASP goods, household goods, and their whole value proposition is deliver the best value to customers so they can have more money in their pockets to do what they want to do to live their lives. And so that digital transaction, very different, but every bit as important to that particular retailer. And so just going in, another lesson for the entrepreneurs out there today, be insanely curious and ask why, and really think through what is it that I can deliver to both those types of companies, because they have some things in common. There are some other things that they don't have in common, and stay away from the things that don't add value.
I wonder, when you're selling it to like for example, like you mentioned, like a fashion brand or like a taco company, how deep of like the level of like education do you have to give before people commit in some sort of like solutions? And I guess, yeah, what is like the overall like educational process look like for
Well,
people to
it's, I'll zero in on one area that's particularly important. And, you know, I wouldn't suggest that this is pervasive in any particular industry versus another that we call into. But what I would say is just in general, quality is way too often overlooked. The quality of your digital experience and the effort that developers and teams put into testing is often overlooked. We did a survey last year. The Titan wrote a white paper on it. If you're interested, go out and read it. It's called "Developers Behaving Badly." It actually has nothing to do with the developers behaving badly as much as it is the motivation of the business leaders to get them to ship on time, or to get them to develop code and ship without having the right resources. When you create an environment like that in technology innovation, naturally people are inclined to take shortcuts. And you can take shortcuts because it helps you get your product out the door maybe on time against what a project manager might say is our ship date. But when it gets out into the wild, the cost associated with regression, that is getting the code back in and having to go all the way through the development lifecycle to identify the fix, make the fix, test the fix, do a pull request and ship the code yet again, the cost is massively higher if you're round tripping that error. The reputational risk, I take pictures every day of software that doesn't work effectively just to remind myself of the reputational risk that companies run when their software doesn't work right in front of me as a consumer. So the cost there is massive. Yet 2/3 of developers that we surveyed ship or do pull requests. They submit their code without running the necessary tests that they feel like they need to. And so long-winded wind-up, Grace, of saying the education that we're trying to do is, again, a lot at the C level to give the developer community the breathing room, to give them the spend dollars so that they can implement automation like Sauce. Maybe it's not even Sauce, maybe it's another automation platform, but give them the ability to drive quality up by providing more automation and a modest amount of time in the development lifecycle to have a sophisticated testing process. You get much better quality. You have a wonderful developer experience. In fact, I have a belief that over time, quality, 100% quality, will be no option, because the amount of platform proliferation and, again, the sophistication of the types of applications that we interface with every day is just going up, 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 up. And quality will not be optional in the future, and that's the kind of education that we're going through a lot right now.
How would you present the, I guess like the report of like the differences between like a good tested product versus like the prior version of the product, since like sometimes it's before they launch it to the world?
Well, you can ask a lot of questions all along the way in doing what is very traditional in the software industry, in doing what are called process audits. We have experts at Sauce who have developed code, they've shipped code, they've tested code, they've run on our platform in our customer accounts, et cetera. And so oftentimes those are the best people to start to go in and pinpoint. The beauty of leveraging some of our expertise is we see what you're doing as a client, but we also see what 30 other large innovators are doing well and doing not so well. And of course, we don't share best practices or competitive information across customers, in a way that would drive down competitive advantage. But we have this benefit of seeing what great looks like, and we can begin to advise and begin to lead people begin to go in and get hands-on with them to help them, again, set up our platform in a way where they get the maximum results, the maximum code coverage, with the best performance possible across the widest range of different endpoint platforms.
When you were thinking about, I guess like clients expansion or like clients doubling down on the platform, like how would you think about, would you uncover more like usability or like profit within the current client ecosystem versus like would you expand to some different region or different size of business, and how do you think about the business growth as a CEO?
Great question. Our industry, relatively small industry, 43 billion USD per year is spent on testing software, generally speaking. Of that 43 billion, a significant portion of that today is still done with live testing, manual testing, literally getting young college kids or even high schoolers or maybe people in underdeveloped countries to do this manual work, with very simple digital experiences. That's not what we're going after today. We have a point of view around how automation changes that over time, and in the back room, we're investing in AI and agent-driven testing capabilities that would automate some portion of that over time. But that's not our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is about $8 billion of serviceable available market, which is again smaller, but that's a good size industry subsegment to go after. And if we just stay disciplined in our ideal customer profile, those that need this high code coverage have to run massive amounts of tests across a huge permutation combinations of browsers, native mobile apps, operating systems, endpoint hardware, will continue to grow. And we're industry focused right now because if you have subject matter expertise and you have a technology, a capability, you apply it differently at the burrito maker versus the bank. And so, we're chipping away at these industries, one industry at a time. And, we get through the next couple of years, we'll add a couple more, and we'll continue to get a larger chunk of that $8 billion.
When you are, let's say, like, I think, you are a successful, like, you are still a successful executive. So like you came into Sauce Labs, after, like it's a 15 years old company. And then, you came in the past, in 2023. So I wonder, what were things that you feel like could be improved as a business today versus like if you're like starting out all from scratch? Like what are the unique advantages and or like maybe some disadvantages coming to the business?
Yeah, well, when you're a 15-year-old company and you're an ARR business where you have hundreds of millions of dollars that are spent by the most important, prolific companies in the world that run digital experiences to run the heart of their business. The number one benefit is you don't have to worry about, do I have product market fit or not? It's clear that you've established, that your predecessors that came before you have established this capability that's valued by some really important customers that have deep pockets to spend on something that they find very important. And so that's a huge advantage. And I find that particularly, again, when you have been fortunate enough to develop a platform to do anything. At the last company, Unity, developed a game development platform. Prior to that, Autodesk had a large set of products that they would position as a platform. One of the biggest challenges you have when you're scaling up as a business is staying disciplined, staying laser focused on what are the use cases that deliver the most value. Because Microsoft Office is a platform. Microsoft Excel is a platform. But if you double click into Excel or Google Sheets, without a basic set of formulas that are pre-populated, it can do almost anything, which means it can do almost nothing. And so, it's really important when you come into a mature company like this, like we are at Sauce, certainly to keep the innovation and velocity and thinking like a lean startup going, but just as importantly, make sure that you rein in and you have a certain amount of focus around the things that you can do, because with a platform and a bunch of large customers and hundreds of millions of dollars of ARR, you can do almost anything you want. And so you gotta figure out where your competitive advantage is.
How do you know which sector will be the most valuable sector to zone in? Like, what are some factors that you look at besides maybe the amount of revenue generated, or how do you kind of understand the data?
You start with macro trends. There's all kinds of wonderful data out there in the world where you can understand the nature of who's spending money on software development in the DevOps space. What tools are they using? What are the key innovations that are driving the way the developer community is evolving in those subsegments? You can get TAM information, 5 ways to Sunday and compare that. So you start with the macro. And, in a lot of ways, you have to get some really bright people around the table. Some are in your company, some are not. And you start, beginning to do some forward thinking, some exercises around what comes next and why would it come next? And, how do you see the world in 2 years? How do you see it in 5 years? How do you see it in 10 years? You're always going to be wrong. Pre-COVID, 3 or 4 years before COVID, none of us would have thought for a million years we would have software on our ring finger that, all day long was managing, and telling us, our sleep quality and our resting heartbeat and whether we're stressed. I'll probably get a message after this saying I was stressed because I was on LinkedIn with Grace this morning. We wouldn't have thought that 5 years ago. And so you start to try and build a view of the future. You have to understand you're always going to be wrong. And then you start to go out, you take that view of the future out to clients and you ask them, what do you see? And you refine that vision. That vision becomes, part of your product strategy. And you horizon it out. What do I do now? What do I need to do now to not only deliver on my today priorities that my customers need from me, but what can I do just very incrementally, very modestly to prove out, to validate my vision of the future and course correct along the way.
Okay, so last week we chatted about, since it was GDC, we chatted about the people will be the holographic version of you will be the new version of the meeting. Yeah. What are some trends that you see? What does the future look like for you?
Well, I'm telling you, I am all in on the technology from the gaming industry being the common way that our digital experiences evolve. And, everything will be real time. Again, 120 frames a second. Everything will be 3D in nature. Everything will be hyper realistic, less and less cartoony and more, you and I mean, you see it right now, the deep fakes that are, AI driven, digital avatars are getting so precise and so undetectable, if you will. It's obviously very scary. Experiences will continue to be anywhere and everywhere around you. I joke about the hologram, but I'm not kidding. We're going to have doctor visits that are holographic in nature. You're going to be, at bus stops and, have all kinds of very rich digital experiences. I take the bus. And so, I literally think that the world's bus stops will have, and mass transit systems will have more and more ways to interact and drive commerce through interactive experiences. And video, real time, multi-platform experiences are going to proliferate all the other industries that are outside gaming. And I've been seeing it for many, many years now, since right before I started my time at Unity. I continue to see it now when I'm working with a bank wanting to get more connected digitally with their high net worth clients. The experiences they're building are more and more real time. They're more and more interactive. Again, they have to work great on all kinds of different devices, including, a pair of glasses. So I'm all in on that, and that's going to happen. And the developer community has the opportunity to create goodness in the world through this next wave of digital transformation. There's obviously a lot of things that can happen that can go wrong, and I think it's up to all of us to be responsible and continue to find problems to solve and opportunities to unlock with the innovation. And that's why I continue to be excited to come to Sauce every day.
What is something that you are seeing that are like the new wave of trends in terms of like that on the adoption level? So like, when we're talking about like, the banks are trying to build a deeper relationship with their top clients. Are they building like the holographic thing to their clients, or like what are we talking about, like in terms of like the technology innovation in the business world, basically?
Yeah, good question. I would call this an easy first step. Like the holographic stuff, you can call it crazy talk, and I'm fine with that. You can call me crazy. It's real.
I want to see it.
But you can. There's some fundamental or some really I'm going to call it easy stuff. Given regulations around privacy around this world. But a lot of what the game industry does really well, even despite governments and some people trying to prevent it, is they do personalization really well. Game developers, their job is to keep you playing. That's it. Like keep you playing and keep you happy playing. And there's a lot of technology around personalization that I see across these other industries that's very important. Since it's on the top of my mind, I'm a very active person. So you saw my ring, wearables for active people, even not active people, geriatric people that maybe have limited movement or have some form of physical handicap that technology can help out. Internal medicine, and how technology is used now to administer things that help people with diabetes, for example. The med tech or healthcare industry in general is very innovative around using personalization across multiple platforms to bring that data together and give you a view of your health in a way where it can be managed more effectively, and over time, create longer lifespans, and even more importantly, the time we do have that even more fulfilling. So that's an example. Personalization I see across all these industries, no matter who you are or where you are, your habits, your behaviors, your stats, your likes, your dislikes, following you wherever you go. And personally, I'm fine with that. I like it.
I wonder when you are thinking about like, building a platform. So like you touch up on this a little bit earlier. So you mentioned like, Unity is a platform, Sauce Lab is a platform. What does that mean versus like a product?
To me, platforms are open, they're extensible, they provide some specific utility. Again, at the core of what we do, we provide cross-browser, cross-mobile, end-to-end functional testing. That's what we do in the sweet spot of our platform. Our platform actually enables our community of developers and the companies we serve to do all kinds of other testing that in some ways is adjacent and just as important as the core functional testing that we do. There's something called synthetic monitoring that allows a company to, without shipping their app out to millions and millions of consumers before they ship, to actually simulate and create millions of users and events in a way where they can do load and capacity testing on their app. We provide through our platform an open API so that somebody who is developing on top of a cloud provider can run and test the functionality of the API calls for the cloud-based services that they are running, through one of the major, public clouds, et cetera. And so platforms, they enable something, they unlock some very specific value, but they're open, they're extensible. Developers can build on top to create all kinds of additional value. That to me is the difference between a platform and an application or a product.
Okay, so I want to be mindful of the time. I want to ask like one last real question, and then we have a 1 minute fire round for you. So I wonder, what is a unique insight that you've found after joining Sauce Labs or back in time in Unity? It could be in the entire testing space or developer space or gaming space.
I'm going to go analog and organic with you. We've had a great discussion this morning talking about technology, talking about testing and its importance, talking about the Sauce Labs platform, product strategies, sales strategies, et cetera. Let's put that aside for a minute. I'm going to talk about people for a minute. And I think, again, being in the twilight of my career, I wouldn't say I learned it recently. It was probably halfway through. But every year I'm reminded, and I spend more and more of my time on it. If you're out there focused on building a great product, that's great. If you're out there focused on building a rule of 50 company with high gross margins and high growth, that's great. I would challenge all the entrepreneurs out there. I would challenge all the business leaders to take a step back and prioritize building great people just as much as you are building a great product and a great company. It's people, particularly in our business, in the technology business, it's great people who accomplish the unexpected, who accomplish what's not possible. And if I go back and reflect all my time, not just here or at Unity or at Autodesk or the many other companies that I've worked at over the years, investing time in helping people unleash the power that's within themselves is probably the biggest gift you can give people as a business leader, and it's the biggest lever you can drive in your company. If you have one conversation a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, 25 years, can't do the math on how impactful, and each one of those coaching conversations turns into 5 more, which turns into 5 more. The math is exponential on the impact you can make to people in the business community. And so I would implore all the leaders out there and all the entrepreneurs who are listening this morning, build great people, and you'll make the world a better place and a better business.
Amazing. I love that message. On that note, I have a 1 minute quick fire round for you. And okay, so what's your favorite book?
Germs, Guns, and Steel, I think it's called. Look it up. I may have the order reversed. Germs, Guns, and Steel.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
My wife, Angela.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Oh my gosh. My family. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's perfect. Okay, so where can we find you outside work?
Where will you find me other than work? Well, I spend part of my time in the Bay Area. I spend part of my time in Idaho, part of my time in San Diego. You'd probably find me outside doing something that's rigorous physically in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my God.
You might find me at a restaurant overeating.
Mood. Okay. Thank you so much, Dave, for coming on the show today.
Grace, thank you. And thanks to all your listeners. Super fun to talk to everybody. Have a great day.
You too.